Dr. Joseph Rosado from Northeast Central Florida, where at the present time we're being hammered by tropical storm slash Hurricane Eta. As I look out my window, we're getting quite a bit of rain and wind. I have one of my colleagues and mentors, Dr. Uma from Massachusetts, Jacqueline from Maryland, who is an amazing educator, Dr. Andrew Agius from Malta, and David Badcock, sorry, from the UK. So each one of you, please take about 30 to 45 seconds to give us your elevator pitch, starting with the ladies, please. Jackie, please proceed.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be part of this panel. I am founder CEO of two businesses in the cannabis industry. My lane is specific to medical cannabis. I founded Cannabis MD in 2017 to support Maryland's nascent medical cannabis industry with education focused on physicians, patients, the industry, professionals, ancillary service providers. And then another company that I have launched is TPAD, which is committed to social justice and equity in the cannabis industry. We talk about how quickly I often refer to the industry moving in dog years, 7 years at a clip. It is incredibly fast. Cannabis MD, I'm very excited. Launched in 2017 again to support Maryland's nascent medical cannabis program, and here I am, figuratively speaking, in Thailand, and supporting programs across the globe now on education of cannabis science, and unfortunately is not available readily to physicians and our healthcare providers.
Exactly. Dr. Uma.
Good morning, everybody. What a pleasure and honor to be here and really gather us truly from all around the world. I'm very proud to say I am in Massachusetts, where we have both a adult use program and a medical use program. I have been a cannabinoid medicine specialist and involved in cannabinoid medicine for over 10 years and been certified through the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine since 2014. I started to write recommendations in the state of Washington and in Massachusetts. And I'm very proud to say our youngest is 4 in our clinic and our eldest is 98. My background is I've been a researcher for over 40 years. I did my family practice residency in Charleston, South Carolina, my second life at the Harvard School of Public Health, both in my master's in public health, occupational environmental medicine, heavy metals. I'm also a medical review officer, and I have been appointed as the medical cannabis expert for Mass Medical Society and the regional coordinator for the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine. And I call cannabis the exit drug, and I've helped patients to get off of pharmaceuticals, narcotics, alcohol, and nicotine. Thank you. Namaste.
I've used that phrase many times because I published a paper in early 2019, and I've done this presentation a few times on a female patient, 45 years old, that was taking between 42 and 58 pills per day. And I always mention that cannabis is not a gateway drug, but rather an exit drug. So thank you, Dr. Uber, for coining that phrase. You should patent it. Mr.
We do have a trademark on it. At least we put a TM next to it. And we do have the registered trademark for cannabis, the exit drug.
Perfect. Excellent. David, please.
Oh, well, thanks, Joseph. Be here amongst the esteemed panelists here. My name is David Badcock. I'm the Chief Executive of Drug Science. I'm here in London, in the UK. Happily, the weather's actually pretty good today compared to yours, Joseph. I'm very happy to say, which is not usual for us in the winter. So I think I'm the only non-medic on the panel today, but I run a charity in the UK that looks to develop scientific evidence on the effects of drugs, and that's all drugs, all illicit drugs. But we're particularly interested in cannabis for obvious reasons right now. We're not just interested in the harms that drugs cause, much more importantly, the benefits that drugs can have in a therapeutic sense. Quite clearly, cannabis, we've known for many years, has a very high therapeutic potential. But the evidence, particularly in the UK, doesn't support it enough for our regulatory bodies, like the NHS, for instance, to make it more widely available for people, despite the fact that it is legal in the UK. It's still not widely available for many people who are using cannabis illicitly for therapeutic purposes. So the organisation is there to provide that scientific evidence, and hopefully I can talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing to do that and to help to make cannabis more accessible for people in the UK.
Perfect. Keep that in mind, because that we're probably going to end with you speaking specifically to that. So please keep that in mind. Andrew.
Hello, everybody. Here it's 2:45 p.m., so it's the afternoon. Nice weather as well outside. Thank you, Joseph. And it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Dr. Andrew Agius. I run a private pain clinic in Malta. I started off around 20 years ago as a family doctor. And my interest throughout my years practicing as a family doctor was trying to understand patients with symptoms that were still uncontrolled despite the many medications that they were taking, that they were prescribed. So in 2015, we set up this pain clinic as an integrative medical center to manage these kinds of patients, patients with chronic pain, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. We found that at the time, medical cannabis was far from being available. So we worked very hard by lobbying the government and trying to get patients to talk about their improvement with cannabis products. And eventually in 2018, we managed to get legal access to medical cannabis for our patients. And now we're still fighting for access to more products, because over 2.5 years, we still have just 4 products, which are raw cannabis flowers. And as we can understand, these are not suitable for every patient that we see at the clinic, especially the older ones or patients with respiratory conditions that are unable to vaporize. So our mission now is to try and educate the public, patients, professionals about the endocannabinoid system, and hopefully this will eventually lead to better access and a wider range of products to be able to manage our patients better.
Let's talk about qualifying conditions, because in the United States, every state has a qualifying condition with the exception of 2. Oklahoma, which leaves it open to the discretion of the physician, as well as Louisiana. In the state of Florida and okay. In Florida, for example, we started out with just 4 diagnoses in 2014, which we had laws in the book, but no products. And the 4 qualifying conditions were epilepsy, chronic conditions that cause seizures, chronic conditions that cause muscle spasms, and cancer. Then in 2016, they added the Right to Try Act, where it allowed us to use cannabis. Patients had to wait 90 days to establish a doctor-patient relationship, and I had well over 20 patients die waiting for those famous 90 days. At present, we have 10 qualifying conditions, but we have one caveat that says that we can qualify a patient based on a debilitating chronic condition that's equal to or greater in severity as one of the 10 named qualifying conditions. As far as medications go, there is no cap as regarding what we can recommend except for flower. Our flower, we can only recommend 2.5 ounces every 35 days. And that's it, no more than that. So around the clock again, Jacquie, what are the rules and regulations in Maryland?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's kind of complex. Maryland is, that's a big question. Qualifying conditions, if I rattle these off, but certainly chronic pain, cachexia, glaucoma. There's actually, I would say relative to other programs in the country, it is a fair number for a patient and a provider to qualify, and that provider to be able to recommend cannabis. And, of course, there's chronic pain is an umbrella that many providers and patients providers are able to recommend and patients qualify with, I think it's 20% of the world's population suffers from chronic pain. You can pretty easily identify chronic pain in a patient. The availability of products, somewhat significant. Edibles have not come to market yet. However, there are some of, or I would say all of the processors in the state of Maryland have a workaround on that, where they've been calling them troches, so a name used in the pharmaceutical industry. But some of the edibles, there are no baked goods available yet, no infused THC infused beverages, but there is a company that packages their medicinal products, so they look an awful lot like I think the packaging looks like Starburst, to where another processing company has a very clinical packaging, in a white label. And then of course we have tinctures available. So I am very proud of Maryland's program, and looking forward to sharing more about it during this conversation.
Dr. Uma, you're in a pretty liberal state, no pun intended. I mean, Massachusetts is the mecca of the Democrats in the United States, with the Kennedys and Shangri-La and everything. But please tell us what the rules and regulations are regarding qualifying conditions. You just stated that there are no qualifying conditions. It's at the discretion of the physician. How accessible are products to the patients?
We're really proud to say pretty much we have access even to the point of delivery services now that have come about for our patients, especially with the advent of COVID. But our qualifying conditions can vary as far as chronic pain. Anything that's been existing for more than three months is what's considered as chronic conditions, and debilitating conditions as well. And again, our program is designed where if you have a pediatric patients, they've made it a little bit more difficult. And I think things can change there, where you need 2 doctors to sign off. It's hard enough to get 1 doctor, never mind 2 doctors. And when you have a pediatric patient, it's not just the patient, it's the family and the parent. And, there's too many hoops, but that's what they've done in Massachusetts, is that pediatric patients need a pediatric doctor and 1 other doctor to certify. We allow up to 10 ounces for 90 days, but also, again, there's the discretion of the doctor. If depending on the condition, I can write for more. And we have products from inhalation. We did have a period of time where they put a ban on vape, especially because of all the concerns with additives, and validly so. But we have inhalation products, we have edible products, we have tinctures, we have topicals, there's suppositories, there's patches, there's a whole array of products. So, one size does not fit all. There's another pot that you can go into now, and then the other part is that because we have patients that might say initially, I don't want to smoke and I don't want to be high, is a common statement that I'll hear. Pretty soon they'll say, Dr. I got me a pipe, so there's that acclimatization of comfort. And what we're also now have the liberty is that our patients are able to go to Maine and Rhode Island. So there's some reciprocity of the nearby states. Massachusetts does not allow other cards, but Massachusetts patients can go now to Maine and Rhode Island. I'm also certifying for New Hampshire as well. And I'm in the process of getting for Maine, Georgia, and Florida. So it depends on the state, as you said, and it also depends on availability. And a lot of this is really education. And that's the 3 words that we use at Uplifting Health and Wellness is educate, embrace, and empower. And that's a 2-way street for us. And I'm very proud to say, the progress is slow, but as you mentioned, dog years, we're getting there slowly, but surely.
Yeah.
And people like all of us are here to advocate for our patients and also for clinicians.
And what does it look like in Malta regarding qualifying conditions and treatment with cannabis?
So in Malta, as long as the patient has a chronic condition, which he would have been prescribed at least 1 medication, and this medication proved to be either ineffective or cause side effects, and the doctor is able to request a prescription for medical cannabis for this patient. Once the doctor makes a request for this application, it has to be vetted by the superintendent of public health. So the superintendent vets every application that comes from every doctor in the country, and they do some due diligence on the patient, and there are certain conditions that exclude the patient being able to access medical cannabis. One of these is, for example, being an opiate abuser, for example. Another is driving, for example. They try to limit the condition to patients who don't drive as a living. And once they've established that this patient can get a prescription of medical cannabis, the first prescription is approved for 30 days. After the 30 days, the patient has to go back, get a review from the prescribing doctor, and then the application is renewed for a period of 6 months. And the patient is then reviewed every 6 months. But with regards to the condition, it can be any condition that the doctor feels that cannabis can help the patient in. Obviously, even though we can prescribe medical cannabis, there are only 4 products that are available. These are 4 products which are cannabis flower. 3 of them have high THC, and 1 of them is a mixed strain with THC and CBD. So again, quite a limited range of medicines, and it's not always sufficient to be able to manage all the patients that need it.
Interesting, the use of terminology between you and the 3 of us that are in the United States, because you say you prescribe cannabis. We say we recommend cannabis, because in the United States, it is federally illegal to prescribe a Schedule I drug. And if we say we're prescribing it, then they would remove our DEA license, and then we couldn't prescribe anything. So we use the First Amendment right of freedom of speech to make recommendations. Now, David, this is your time to shine. Tell us what you're proposing, what your ideas are in starting or promoting your program in the UK.
Yeah. Well, sure. I think just kind of to follow on what everybody said, which I find remarkably interesting. In the UK, there's kind of a 2-tiered approach with prescribing cannabis. There's the NHS, which prescribes to patients free at the point of care, and then there's the private sector. And the problem with the NHS, despite the fact that medical cannabis has been legal for over 2 years now, it only recognises a very narrow range of products that can be prescribed to a very narrow type of condition. So basically, it will only prescribe to patients who have epilepsy or MS. And then even still, there's not much choice that those patients have in terms of the actual product that they can receive. And I know that the products that have been approved are not right for everybody. So there's a real problem, there's a real barrier to lots of people being able to get what they need. So the private sector is kind of filling in the demand at the moment, and the private sector can prescribe a whole range of products to a whole range of conditions. It's just really up to the physician to feel comfortable and feel like they're making the right choices to do that. But it comes with a degree of risk. Only a specialist can prescribe. So GPs at the moment are not able to prescribe. And not only that, it's unlicensed medicine. So the doctor takes on the risk of that prescription. They're not protected. So if anything goes wrong, then it's the doctor who kind of falls foul. So this is obviously a big presenting a big barrier in itself. Doctors not wanting to risk their career, on that basis, I suppose. Thankfully, there are some doctors who are, blazing a trail and are doing it because they know that it's the right thing to do. So anyway, quickly coming back to your question, I won't talk too long, but just what we are trying to do with a project we're running called Project 2021 is an observational study, and we're really trying to build that body of evidence so that the NHS can prescribe to many more patients, different conditions and different range of products. So that's on one side, and then the other side, doctors also have the evidence to feel that they can prescribe and they can see what's happening, because that evidence doesn't exist really in the UK. In other parts of the world it does, but us being the UK, sadly we kind of only like to look at what we've done. We don't like to look at what other countries have done. I think that's a huge mistake, and it's to our detriment. But our project is trying to deliver that. So we are doing real world data evidence, monitoring patient outcomes, as patients are prescribed through the private sector. We've removed a lot of the barriers, a lot of the cost barriers for patients. We hope to have get to the point where we've got 20,000 patients and we've collected all their health outcomes data on a range of products and a range of conditions. And then we'll use that data to present to the government and say, look, this, we can prove, we've proven that it's effective, it works. We can show where there's adverse events, we can show where there's problems, we can mitigate that, and the NHS should then be able to prescribe to patients and at no cost to patients. That's ultimately what we want to see.
Perfect.
Dr. Rosado, I wanted to just clarify, is that in Maryland, it is a two-tiered system where not every provider does recommend or is actually interested in recommending. So a patient does have to have a qualifying condition, share their that clinical history with a certified and licensed provider, which can be, there are 5 qualifying types of providers in Maryland.
Go ahead and expand on that. We've got 20 minutes. We got plenty of time.
Oh, we got time to chat? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and this is a significant issue, is that there are not enough providers available that do want to certify patients, number one. Number two is what I was speaking about last night, is the level of education that they just don't have. But so in the state of Maryland, it's an MD DO, a dentist, a podiatrist, a nurse practitioner, and a certified midwife.
Wow. Yeah, in Florida, it's just MDDO. That's it. Massachusetts, the same, correct?
Wait, no, well, we actually now have expanded to nurse practitioners that can write it too. And it's interesting. I'm really surprised to see dentists be able to write it. That's awesome. I mean,
of course there are very few. I mean, it does make sense to me because of that, considering the pain. I would qualify what I had said, though, is that PAs can recommend medical cannabis as long as they are within that practice umbrella of a certified recommending physician.
Yeah. It's very interesting you mentioned that. See, one of the things that I feel that's very important about cannabis is I say the plant is for 5 Ps. It's for people, it's for pets, it's for the planet, it's for peace, and for profit. And that profit to me is your health and wellness. Nothing in the world, all the money in the world is not going to give you your health and wellness. And the other thing that I say is that this is truly a solution. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Health and Hygiene Solutions. In 2006, I knew nothing about cannabis or the endocannabinoid system, but my mission has always been about promoting wellness and preventing illness. And this is where I truly believe that cannabis should be a first-line option and not the last resort. And we've mentioned certain illnesses like cancer. Cancer, we know that we're willing to give chemotherapy, radiation, whack parts of the body, right, immunotherapy and steroids, and yet cannabis must be part of this repertoire is what I really feel. And the research that needs to get done. We keep saying there's not enough research. Hello, there's a thing called Google, search, Medscape, PubMed. Yes, PubMed.gov. And I keep telling that the rhetoric needs to stop. And this is where the power of our language as clinicians is so important. I really feel we never classify our GI system or our endocrine systems as working medically and recreationally. Why do we refer to the endocannabinoid system as working medically or recreationally? Incorrect. We should not be using the word high. We should be using the word healing. That's what this plant is about. It's healing and helping and hope. That's what this is about. And also, I can boldly go to bed every night saying my plant kills nobody.
Right.
I mean, honestly, a doctor should be in fear about the prescriptions. I have not written an opioid in over a decade. I'm bold and I'm proud of that. I can say I've certified over 6,000 patients. And this is where I'm very, very passionate about this, because even with all of my degrees, I got involved because my mom died of an illness known as idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And many clinicians know it's just a fancy term for we don't know what caused your lung disease. My mom had never smoked, and it was my mom that told me about a TV program. And that's when I learned that Dr. Meshulam was doing his work in Israel and really started understanding the history. And what we understand today is that this is about racism and politics, not evidence-based medicine. Let's get that message out to people. You know, double-blinded studies, only 11% of research is based on double-blinded studies. Aspirin, never, ever, ever FDA approved. So let's get the facts out there and get rid of the rhetoric and the reefer madness, and you know, all of that has to go away. So that's where the efforts of using our language properly and saying that this is medical. It's all medical, folks. You know,
Exactly.
you call it
Whether you're using it recreationally or medically, we all have an endocannabinoid system, and
exactly.
you're getting the medicine. Andrew, if you had a magic wand and could create the program in Malta to the way you want it to be, what would you do?
So at the moment in Malta, besides having these 4 products with THC, we also have an unregulated CBD market, which even complicates things further. And patients are just buying different CBD products, buying the cheapest ones, you know, thinking that they got a good deal, you know, and obviously there's a lot of misinformation and confusion. On the other hand, we have the Medicines Authority, who is being extremely tight with their review of the product. You know, they want the products available in the pharmacies to be EU GMP with special tests that, you know, ensure top quality of the products. And sometimes, you know, this is so tight that most products, in fact, since 2018, did not qualify to be approved as medicines because of the conditions that they were made. So what we need, I think, is a bit of a balance. We need products that are safe, effective, and that we can recommend without having to undergo all these fancy tests, you know, that tend to put up the cost of the product and tend to limit our choice of products, you know, to very few which were manufactured in a certain way. Having said that, in Malta, we are setting up a lot of factories, a lot of manufacturing facilities, and we are going to start repackaging and also producing products locally for the local market and to export. And hopefully these will be up to standard and they will be accepted by the Medicines Authority. But I think the patients come first, and we need to listen to the patient's needs. And the patients need something that is affordable, that is safe, and that is going to help them relieve their symptoms in the most effective way possible. So we need to keep our options open. And I think the system that any country should have should be based on, firstly, education to understand, you know, how the medicine works in our body, what's happening when we consume, the changes that are happening, the side effects, which could be positive or negative. And also educating professionals, you know, on the missing link that we have in our knowledge, you know, that explains so many of the symptoms that we couldn't really explain without the knowledge of the endocannabinoid system, and also managing conditions that before we just dismissed, as there's nothing left to do. We've tried everything. So there's the need of education. There's the need to have a range of products that could be used for different conditions, different types of patients, different methods of delivery. And these products should be produced in a safe way, in a certified facility, but I think they should not be overpriced and they should be accessible to most patients. For those patients who cannot even afford having such products, because not all patients work and not everyone can afford to, pay for their medicine at those high prices, there should be the option for these patients to be educated about the possibility of growing their own medicine and producing their own medicine in a safe way at home, so they can self-medicate with something that they can grow at home. I think obviously there should be a limited number where the patient can grow, but definitely there should be the option to allow patients to self-medicate with the medicine that they grow themselves. And for those who are going to a doctor, getting advice and getting a prescription through the legal way and getting it from the pharmacy, there definitely should be less bureaucracy in getting a prescription, because it's okay for a patient to come to me and have cancer, and I can prescribe morphine just in 5 seconds, give them the prescription, they go to the pharmacy and they get it in no time. But for cannabis, they need to wait for 2 to 3 weeks to get approval. If they have a history that excludes them, they cannot use it because, maybe 30 years ago, this person had a drug problem, went to detox, and now, they have a family, but still they have chronic pain, which they were probably self-medicating for as well, at the time, and without even knowing. But because, they're registered as they abused drugs in the past, they're not allowed to use this medicine, which is going to help them manage their symptoms much better than anything else. So I think easy access to the medicine, at least on the same level as benzodiazepines and opiates, and less, of these reviews and follow-ups. Obviously, patients need to be monitored regularly. Definitely, I fully agree that patients need to be supervised, but certain extra visits and follow-ups and paperwork shouldn't be imposed on patients who some of them have been already self-medicating with this medicine for a number of years. I have patients coming to me using cannabis for 40 years or even longer, and doing very well, managing their symptoms. And these patients, because of this system, need to be followed up after a month, and then every month they need a prescription. They should have an open approval for 6 months. They know what medicine they need. If they need any advice, the doctors and the healthcare professionals are on standby to help them, but they can go to a dispensary, get advice from the person there, on what product perhaps can help them, and just choose the product that's best for them without all the need for getting an approval, waiting for approval, and then they go and they have an expired prescription or an expired control card. I mean, there's so much bureaucracy and paperwork that's many times patients give up. They prefer to go to their dealer, and get it, even though they're not sure if they're getting something safe or not. Then go through all these hoops, that waiting for this and waiting for that.
It sounds like bureaucracy is it sounds like bureaucracy is an issue everywhere. David, same question to you.
Yeah,
Aside from your 2021 project, what else would you implement in UK?
Yeah, absolutely. So and to say everything that Andrew just said, I think kind of pretty much mirrors with where we are in the UK, certainly in terms of you know, all the barriers towards accessibility. But so what I would say is we want to get to the point where the NHS in the UK is prescribing medical cannabis to patients for a whole wide range of symptoms and indications, and where patients are not having to pay for it. At the moment, they're having to go to either the private sector where the costs are very high, or more likely, they're going to continue to access cannabis through the black market. And that's what we're seeing. The vast majority of patients, I think the latest report was something like 1.4 million people in the UK are using cannabis for therapeutic purposes, not recreationally, for therapeutic purposes, and are having to buy it from the illicit market. So therefore, they're having to incur all the risks that then brings with not knowing what you're buying, not knowing who you're buying it from, risking criminalization, you know, not having any support if something it doesn't go right, you know, all the problems that brings. So that is a huge problem, I think, in the UK. So what we need is the evidence that we are producing through 2021. But on top of that, we need we need our authorities to look at evidence outside of the UK, evidence that already exists. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We need our regulatory bodies to allow the importation of medical cannabis products into the UK without all the restrictions they currently have. Because it's really hard at the moment for producers to just import products, even when they've been prescribed to patients. Patients are still waiting to receive their product just because of the regulations for getting the product into the country. So that needs to change. And then really a kind of a note from what has already been said in terms of just general awareness and education amongst, particularly amongst the medical community, and also reducing the stigma. There's still a huge amount of stigma that involves. I think Dr. Uma said it perfectly. People, we should stop looking at it in it's cannabis, and it's an illegal drug that's now become legal. It's a therapeutic drug that anybody could use. There is there's very little risks of death by using, we should look at it in this way. We should destigmatize. We should educate the public to understand that, you know, cannabis is a very good option in many cases, certainly compared to other treatments that, as Andrew was saying, we happily prescribe in a heartbeat. Then it's not as effective and certainly not as safe as cannabis seems to be. So yeah, I think, you know, there's that whole wider picture for me is what needs to change. There's a lot there, but we can do all we can to move it forward as quickly as possible, and that's what we're trying to do. We have 3 minutes left.
So Jacquie, for an investor, someone that wants to get into the cannabis space, what one word of advice would you give them? And everyone else be thinking about the same thing, because this will be your final question. We got 3 minutes, so go for it.
Oh, well, let's see. I would say biosynthetic cannabinoids. Very exciting. The cost of production is way less than growing the plant. That said, however, plant-based medicine will not go away. I actually connected with a company. It was the first one that I have seen, a company, I believe they're based in, it's a grow in Colorado, and they kept using the word medical. And that is the investment space, is that recognizing adult use, far more available in the US, but this is a medicine, and that physicians are an integral part of what we're offering. And I don't know if that, I would say, certainly considering again biosynthetics as well as education. Physicians need to be part of this, and there's an investment opportunity to educate them.
Perfect. Dr. Uma.
So I want to remember, I love acronyms. So I say Dr. Uma says cannabis cares. C is that it should be a choice of medication. It is definitely an alternative for biotechnology and plastics that can replace that. R, there's plenty of research out there. More needs to be done. It's about educating people about the stigma in the endocannabinoid system. And S, it's a solution for the world for climate change and other things. And I say, reach 1, teach 10, safety first, do no harm. And the 3 words I want to leave people with is educate, embrace, and empower. And I'm at upliftinghealthandwellness.com, Uplifting Health and Wellness here in Cambridge, Mass. And please reach out to us. God bless you all. And thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And Andrew, we've got 1 minute left.
So I just want to say that we should focus on patients' needs. You know, this is a very personalized medicine. There are different medicines that work for different patients. So we should try to understand in the same way that the 2021 project is doing, how it works, you know, from observational studies. We don't have to wait for the clinical trials. Get the evidence that there is, use it, you know, and give the patients what they need.
And with that, I say thank you all very much. Thank you to all my colleagues, doctors, non-doctors, and check out the weed, the little my flower bow tie. That's tie-dye.
Done.
Time's up. Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Go to sleep. For those of you that are been up all night.